Paul, there's something about this team. And listen, I'm not saying they're a World Series contender, far from it, but how can you watch this team and at least not say they're compelling, they're entertaining, they're deserving of an upgrade? They play a good brand of baseball. They play a fun brand of baseball. They make mistakes. They're not perfect. They're not the best team in baseball, but the mistakes are starting to happen less and less. They can run, speed travels. They put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses and opposing pitching staffs. If there was ever a young team worth investing in for the sake of showing some belief in some young players, helping them get to the playoffs, helping them grow, investing in kind of a transitional basis, because this team, listen, they're not a World Series contender, and I get that, but there is so much value in getting to the playoffs for a young group, specifically a group like this. They're feeling good about themselves. You need to give them a reason to believe. I don't think I need to convince you or just about any Red Sox fan that this team is worth investing in, not to mention the fact that the competition in the American League is down. The Yankees are really starting. The Yankees have not played good baseball lately. All of a sudden, we're here at the beginning of July. I know it's crazy. You're only 5.5 behind the Yankees at this point. This team is worthy of an investment. Do you believe that? Yes or no?
Yeah, I absolutely think that they're worthy of an investment because I don't think they're good enough as constituted. So I'm going to sound like I'm being negative, but I'm really not meaning it that way. I think what they've done is far more than you could have expected. And I'm not talking about what you thought of the team heading into the season or any of your expectations or any of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about given the amount of personnel that they've had to play without for stretches of time this year, they found a way to keep themselves interested. Now, if you're going to talk about the last 3 weeks, it's a team that's absolutely worth, investing in, committing to, and upgrading. The rest of the season is exactly what we kind of thought they were going to be. Whereas for the Yankees, it's been completely the flip side. I don't think the Yankees were as good as they play. I mean, obviously, no one's as good as they were playing. They were playing like 700 ball for a while there. Is the last 3 weeks what the Yankees are? Or are they just in a slump? Are the last 3 weeks what the Red Sox are, or are they just red hot? And I'll tell you what I would worry about, and I'd be curious to get Tyler's take on it. I worry about the pitching has been so good. It's been very consistent. I just worry about all the innings that all these guys – I mean, is there a guy on this staff that's not going to hit his career high in innings?
Right. Great point.
So that's where I think that Breslow needs to go out, and obviously Tyler will have the names that I won't be able to have, but he needs to go out and figure out a way to get a couple of arms in here to make sure that Tanner Houck is still Tanner Houck when we hit August and, not going to run out of gas. These guys are pitching a lot of innings, and I think that's what it's all predicated on.
Milliken, let me ask you this, because you could argue, and Paul just said it. I guess the nerd term would be, well, it's, small sample size over the last 3 weeks. Going back to the Phillies and Yankees series, which is approaching a month ago at this point.
You go back a month ago?
June 11th, I think it was.
Yes. You go back a month ago, this Red Sox team was the one that split with the White Sox, and you had Brian Bayo spiking his mound, or his glove on the mound. I think when you talk about they don't win yesterday's game the last 2 years, they don't win this game or yesterday's game a month ago, 2 months ago. And that's the difference with them. That's where you're seeing that growth. But I also understand where you can say, well, hey, if that was only a couple months ago, this is a young team. Did they fall back into that?
So, Milliken, I just think you hit the most important point that I hope the Red Sox understand, but I don't think they do, because I think they're going to say, well, it's a small sample size, and we're going to regress to the mean. I would argue that a young baseball team is getting better. I think that's such a great point. They do not win yesterday's game on May 30th. They don't do that. But you know what happens? Eventually, when young players get enough experience and they start learning and they gain confidence, all of a sudden they start playing better baseball, and they're better in the moment. And, yesterday is the type of game where they would make enough mistakes to cost them the game. They didn't do that. They ran. They can run. And that's that's a way to overachieve in baseball in 2024. With the new rules, the Red Sox speed and athleticism is helping them play over their heads.
Yeah, I just want to see what happens when it levels off a little bit. Right now, this is great. And, what is it? What are they, 13-4 or something? I mean, they're playing a ridiculously high level of baseball. I want to see what happens when it levels off a little bit. Does the leveling off last a week? Does it last 2 weeks? Or is it, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres over the weekend, and then they bounce right back and sweep the next team? If it's the latter,
Yep.
let's go. Let's go out and get them some help and see if you can push them over the top, because we've seen in that league, and I was definitely, I am a late convert on this, but you've seen in the last couple of years, it doesn't matter how you get in, you can make a run.
Right.
I was always like, well, what's the difference if you're 84, 85 wins, you squeak in as the last wild card. Well, Arizona did it, Philadelphia did. I mean, these teams are making runs to the World Series without necessarily, being that 105 win team. So why not you? Go and invest in it. Go and invest. And I have to think in the back of my mind that was the final nail in Heim's coffin, is he couldn't figure out which direction he wanted to go at the deadline. Maybe Breslow has been empowered a little bit more by John Henry to go all, one way or the other. And hopefully it's to buy, because that's what they need. They need some help.
Milliken, let me ask you this on Breslow. He has not exactly been, overly committal to the idea of adding to this team. Yes, it did. His comments to Nesson and Dave O'Brien a few weeks ago were very much out of the Chaim Bloom school. He did go on Greg Hill, though, and essentially criticize Bloom for his inability to pick a direction at the deadline. He said, when you try and do a little bit of both, where do you end up? And I'm paraphrasing here. And that was the first moment where I said, maybe this guy does get it. So what is your confidence level as somebody who follows the Red Sox more day to day than anybody I know and anybody at the station, to be totally honest? What is your confidence level in Breslow's willingness to go out and add to this team a month from now?
I'd say it's somewhat high as long as they are where they are right now. So you go back a year ago, they were 7 games over 500 when they got to the trade deadline. They had played great ball in the month of July. I believe they were 15-8 overall. You saw a team kind of rise. That's why I think the next couple weeks here, it's awesome to see them at 8 games above 500, better than you were at the deadline a year ago. But that's why this Yankees series, you're going to play the Royals right before the trade or right before the All-Star break as well. Another team that is flip-flopping back between you for the third wild card. But I do think those Breslow comments of him saying, hey, I want to buy or sell. Alex Cora delivering a very similar message as well. It's buy, sell, or do nothing. It's nothing, walking that middle line like we saw last year. I think 2022 was another version that was even weirder. But last year, what scared me was it felt like, to me, Chaim Bloom was held back. I think if you go back to the signings of, Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen, all those guys were told, hey, we're trying to compete. We're trying to win this year. It may not be full World Series push, but we're going to push as far as we can. We know John Henry told Chaim, you're not allowed to spend another dollar, basically. You're at $225 million. That's what you have. If he does that same thing to Craig Breslow, there's not many opportunities there. And last year, Chaim said, you know what? I'm not going to break the team up. We're going to try with James Paxton, who was at workload concerns already. It's scary how much that reflects the Tanner Houck conversation that Paul brought up. Cutter Crawford, another one of those guys. But I think if they are where they are right now, and there's been a lot of talk about Breslow understanding the clubhouse, just being a former player and to that level, I just think they're going to need to play at this level or better to get there. And to me, it's like, you don't have to go crazy. I don't think anyone's saying you need to make this massive, massive push, to go and try to win like the Angels did a year ago, and it creates all these problems. But why can't you do what you did in 2021, where you spend all the way up to the luxury tax? Say what you will, you got $13 million before you get there. That's plenty of room to work at the deadline. Yep. And you have the prospect capital to go get pieces without trading any of the big three if you don't want to. And in a perfect world, would I like them to say, hey, we want to go get Garrett Crochet or Luis Robert, and we're going to make this crazy blockbuster move to say the window is ours now. We don't care what anybody's saying. We're ready to go. Sure. But I don't think Red Sox fans are asking that. Just give them the investment they need to stay afloat, so when someone hits a wall in August, it's not the end of your season.
Give them enough players to help them make the playoffs so that this team can learn what October baseball is like. The value of playing meaningful baseball in September and October for a young team cannot be overstated, and you can't quantify that. You can look at the playoff odds all you want, and I could check them today, and I don't know where the Red Sox playoff are.
43%.
Too low. Those are Milliken, can you find out how that number is quantified? It's too low. Too low. There is not enough competition in the American League. The Red Sox have a better than 43% chance right now.
I'll give you a counter to that, and I don't know if this is how it's, I'm not the math guy. So I don't know if this is taken into consideration, but have you seen what Houston's been doing
Houston's
lately?
playing much better baseball.
So everybody says, like, are they really going to lose to Kansas City? Yeah, probably not. Probably not, but Houston's coming.
Yes.
And I don't think you sort of talk about sustain, right? Sustainability. I think that's sustainable. I think they played terribly for a month and a half, dug themselves a big hole, but they have the talent to play the way that they're playing right now for a couple of months. I would worry about Houston.
You should.
And I would add Seattle in there, who right now is still holding on to the AL West. If they held on to that division, which I don't think they will, I think the Astros are going to take it, it would be the worst batting average and the worst on-base percentage for a division winner ever. That's where they are. But you know what that means? The Mariners are buying. They're playing to go get bats. And Alex Cora made the direct point. And keep in mind, the Red Sox were on pace for 85 wins going into September last year. He goes, all those teams around us got better. So what may be seen as an 85-win team on July 31st isn't that when all these teams start to upgrade and go get those pieces. And for the Red Sox, you don't have to go nuts for this specific reason. You're getting one of the best bats in baseball and one of the best relievers in baseball starting in August, hopefully a little before that with Casas. But Tristan Casas and Liam Hendricks, imagine having Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin, and Liam Hendricks, along with Justin Slayton, Greg Weissert. That's ridiculous at end of games.
That's going to be the argument, though. No, our trade deadline acquisitions are getting Tristan Casas and Liam Hendricks on the roster.
That's the garbage because you don't have to do that much. Just do enough. Just go get a starting pitcher and maybe a right-handed bat to help platoon with Masataka Yoshida a little bit. You don't have to do the most crazy thing. Just don't do last year where you barely add and you're in a really tough spot.
I think the Red Sox are forced to add.